Welcome to the Fit to Fight Fire podcast. And today we have Jeremy Sanders. Jeremy, thank you for being on the show, man. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to spend some time with Ric Jorge and I. I got Ric Jorge here as my co-host, and we're just happy to have you here, man. We feel blessed to be able to spend this time together. What I'd like you to do is kind of share with the audience a little bit about yourself, your fire service background, whatever you want to share about your family, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. First of all, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this opportunity. Anything I get to do with my good friend Ric, I'm all in, no matter what. But just to be on this platform and to see what you are doing with bringing all of this faith and Jesus and everything into the mainstream, that it's inspiring to me. And so thank you very much for that. So, Jeremy Sanders, we actually live up near Tulsa, Oklahoma, but I work at a career department just north of Oklahoma City. So got about 100 miles to commute each time. That kind of happened basically because, well, right now I've got little over 21 years on. And when I got to meet my wife and we got together and all that, she's from Tulsa, and it just happened to be a better choice to be there. That's the first question people always ask. Well, why do you work there? But so 21 years there. I have been a captain there for, I believe, about 5. So really, really enjoying that role and the opportunities that role has given me to share my message with the people that I come encounter with. So that's been a really cool journey there that I'm sure we will get into. As far as family life, we've got a blended family. So like a lot of blended families, they can get really big really quick. We've got 8 kids, and so several of them have moved out, so we don't have them all at home anymore. But
thank God. Holy moly.
Well, so that's the second part of the story is our oldest daughter, her husband, and our first and only grandson has moved back in with us. So that has been a really, really cool thing to be able to, there's some days when I just see him for, 5-10 minutes, but getting to see him so much has been awesome. It has been truly an amazing blessing. It sucked because, pretty much our entire summer revolved around like a huge remodel to get all this in place. But now that it's all done, it's been really nice. And so really that's kind of the basic, as little as I want to start out with. I'm sure we'll get into a lot more from there because there's a lot to dig into, but that's kind of me.
So Jeremy, and the fire service is kind of, you'll hear people talk about brotherhood, and then you'll hear people talk about, otherhood and stuff. And he's not a brother, he's the other, and all this. And there's a convoluted sense of what brotherhood really is. You opened by saying, my good friend Ric Jorge and stuff, and the feeling is mutual. But I want people to understand how friendships are developed. Okay, I mean, it may seem basic, right? But there is strength in numbers, and so. And what I mean by that is the three of us have faith-driven lives. Now, this is not a common thing that you would sit around a fire table with and, in the day room and discuss, your faith and how God's blessed you and this and that and da-da-da-da. No. I'm there to beat my chest, drag my knuckles and work, right? So, but there has been this awakening, this evolution kind of thing with regards to people not hiding their faith anymore, not feeling like they can't suppress it. So I want to talk about, that's one aspect, but it was the relationship aspect. How did you find the attraction to what was going on because we met at the North Florida Fire Expo. We did a podcast prior to that. So talk about the attraction, because I want to back up on that when you're done.
Yeah. So just kind of a little bit of context to that, I don't know what started the conversation between me and you, but I mean, we had a pretty lengthy texting conversation for, several years, and like you said, did the podcast. And so really started building up as much as you can a relationship over text with somebody that you've never met before. But I mean, that evolved into, I mean, we had phone calls back and forth, checking on each other and talking each other through things. And so that, that was a relationship that I truly, it was important to me. I don't care if I've never met him before in my life. So, the time came last, I guess, February for the North Florida Fire Expo. I was speaking there, and Rick and the TRT group was doing the DHP program there. And really, the only thing in my head was I wanted to make it work out to go meet him, just shake his hand. It had I had no other, you know, business or anything else coming out of it. I didn't think there would be anything else coming out of it. So it was kind of a struggle to make that work because the two venues were so far apart. But Nick Pepper, I think, is the one that drove me and got me up super early and drove me there because I had to speak just a few hours after I left. But got to, shook his hand, and of course Rick is busy running around doing all the stuff, getting ready for the class. And so as he's doing that, I'm just kind of, making my way around the group and, meeting other people in the group. And at first it's just, okay, these guys are really nice. They're really, they just met me and they're shaking my hand and smiling. And okay, well, thankfully I had, probably 4 or 5 hours that I could hang out with them. And man, I just bounced around to different people in that group through that time. And I was just blown away at how humble they all are, how vulnerable they are willing to be with somebody they just met, how just genuine. And just, I'm not maybe somebody that wants to judge people, but it's pretty easy to figure out if somebody is truly genuine really quick. And that is how I felt with everybody there. I legitimately left that 4 or 5 hour time with pretty much people I had never met before, feeling like I had made a lot of friends. And so to go even a little bit further back is just when you see these people, they're all, they're all big people. They're very physical people. They're very, they almost, you could say, intimidating, some of them. So there's a very strong presence. Even the ones that may not be big, they have a strong presence about them. And so that was the most beautiful thing of all, was at first to see that strength. And then as that time went and I got to talk with all of these guys, to add that vulnerability into it. And literally my lecture a few hours after I left there was about that, building not just good characteristics, but really combining characteristics that don't usually match. And strength, vulnerability is exactly one of them I talked about. And to sit there and see it in person was amazing. And I was just drawn to these guys. I mean, I couldn't help but be. And there were several stories that I learned from these people that are probably deeper than a lot of stories I've heard from people I've known for years. But I'm sure there was, they probably knew that Rick had a little bit of a relationship with me, so maybe that helped them to open up more, or just maybe that's just who they are. But it doesn't matter, because that's what truly struck me. And thankfully I am now able to continue that relationship with these guys and to be a part of that group myself. And it is truly one of the most incredible things that I can just say, man, that is God working. And I don't care what you say. It is absolutely no way that this whole thing plays out. Like 2023, the way the whole thing played out, there's no way it happens like that without his intervention and me just being able to be open to whatever opportunity his path opens up. But that's really that what drew me in for sure.
So the follow up on that is, so what the reason that I knew John, the reason I knew Jeremy was legit is because the values that he has in his life. And so there are things that support your values. Your values are your choices, the things that you like to surround yourself with. So he's a family man, and like any other family, they've got their difficulties, they've got their struggles, and the way he approached them, the way he talks about them, all of those things are those qualities that I admire in people. Right? I am not I'm a cheap sinner. Okay. I mean, that's just the easiest way to put it. So I have to surround myself with righteous men. What I mean by that is men that are trying to do the right thing all the time. And because it lifts me up. It's like working with guys like you two guys with the work ethic, right? At the station, it's like, hey, it's time to train. Okay, let's go. And it's no big deal. And we feed off each other, and it's the same way within the individual's physical character and his spiritual being. And when those two things meet, it's very, very powerful. And so those guys in the cadre are legitimately like that. They are big, tough guys, and they've been through it, right? Everybody gets their turn in the barrel, but they have come out the other side. And I like that because in our class, people are in the barrel. That's the barrel. And they're going to go through it. And I need guys that know how to manage that. And John's aware of that. He's done the class several times we've done the class together several times. So, and I recognize that in you right away. It's like you said, and John, you'd probably agree, to be able to spot the genuineness in people is, it's not difficult. It's not difficult because it stands out.
Yeah.
Jeremy, I love how you talk about the vulnerability and the strength. And Paul talks about, in my weakness, I find strength. In my weakness, I find strength. And I love that because it took me a long time to understand that as a man early in the fire service, trying to prove myself, trying to be top dog, like very competitive. Like I would never show weakness. I would never show vulnerability. I would hide it, even though it was there. A lot of my motivation was driven by insecurity. Am I good enough? Do I have what it takes? Right? Everything that a man struggles with. Those were all the things that were driving me early in my career. And now you talk about identifying that weakness and strength in these men. And Rick, you just kind of brought it together. That combination is so powerful. And once you have that, there comes a peace. There's a peace about you that you can't have any other way. It's just submitting to knowing that Jesus Christ is in control of all things. And in your weakness is where he's going to do the greatest work and attract you to other people's and make other people, and it makes you more inviting to others. So talk to me about that vulnerability in your life and areas where you've had to use that to connect with others, but also where that came from. Like what happened to you in your journey where you had to submit and say, hey, I can't do this on my own. I'm a weak man. God, I need you.
Yeah, absolutely. And this part of my story, I haven't been that well spoken of. I haven't talked about it much, and it has nothing to do with me, not wanting to or me being embarrassed, anything. Really, the biggest thing is I've got two younger kids that are still, it's their story too, and so there's that really, really, really delicate balance of what I'm throwing out there, but they're at the age now where they know a lot of everything, and just things have changed, and so I think that I'm more than happy to get into more of that. But really, if that, just to answer that specific question right there, I got married to my first wife in 2000, and the first year, as far as what I remember, I mean that's a long time ago. First year was just a normal year. There's nothing that kind of stands out to me, but very quickly into maybe even earlier than that, but very quickly into the period after that, things really started to change. We started making lots and lots of emergency room visits, and just obviously something was going on with her. And come to find out, and a lot of it just had to do with me being naive. I should have seen it right away, but she was addicted to narcotics, and that led to really, I guess, about 12 years of being married to somebody that was addicted to narcotics. And yeah, it's crazy to say that. People are like, why in the world would you? I don't know, but I do know that I got two amazing biological kids out of it, and I got two other kids that ended up being fostered by us that I wouldn't have if I didn't. So that's a whole nother side story. But I in that time, I spent several years, like you're talking about, just wanting to act like everything was fine, just not saying anything to anybody. I kept it all to myself, all the struggles, all the just the torrent of emotions and things inside me. I kept it all inside. And I thought that was fine. I thought that, okay, if I don't say anything, nobody knows. But really, the person I was becoming was very obvious. I was becoming a bitter person. I was becoming angry and checked out and just not a good firefighter and just all these other things that were happening. And so it wasn't a big secret like I thought. That, people might not have known what was going on, but there's obviously something happening. And so one day, I don't even know kind of what caused it. If it was just I couldn't take it anymore, if it was just the moment was right, whatever. I just kind of spilled everything to one of the guys that I was probably closest to at that time, and just told them, this is what's going on, and this is what I'm trying to deal with, and and it was a really great moment for several reasons. First of all, it got that off of me. It involved now somebody else, so I wasn't alone. But one of the coolest things is he sat there after I was done and started going into things in his life that were similar and that were struggles that he had never told anybody. And so it was just a big kind of an eye-opening event right there. And I'm not going to say that after that moment it was like, okay, it's now I'm an open book and I don't care who knows what, I'm just going to share it. But there was definitely a process that pretty quickly that's what I turned into. I had no desire to keep anything inside anymore. I had no just I couldn't I couldn't do everything that I was having to do to keep the ball moving and surviving while keeping it all inside and keeping everybody out. And so from that point, or just a little later on, that was kind of who I wanted to become. I wanted to become somebody that shared their story with people. And obviously I was still going through my story, and I was still in the middle of all of this mess when I started realizing that. But I now realize how important it is to not only do it for me, but to do it for the benefit of others. And now how I look at it is all that stuff and the things that I am currently going through and the things that I will go through, all the pain and everything that it involves with the bad stuff. I would have gone through it for nothing, absolutely nothing, if I keep that inside. If I hold that in and don't try to share it with others, it's an absolute waste. Or I can share it with whoever I come in contact with that, maybe seems like the right time to do it. And I might add some value to their life. I might give them some strength that they need. I might give them a resource or two that they haven't had. So that's really, I know it's a kind of a longer version of an answer for that, but that's truly a very it's just one of those things where I can pinpoint exactly the time. And there's not a lot of things in my life that I would say that, this is when that changed, or this is when I realized that. But this very moment is absolutely one of those.
Well, when you say you feel like there's an opportunity to share that when the time is right, that reminds me of like just you're giving your pain purpose when through your own life and your own struggles and your own adversity, it's like the instruction manual for somebody else that might be going through something similar. And I think from my experience, that's how God works. Like anytime things show up now that are difficult, I kind of like right away now, and this is where I'm at now. It wasn't always this way. It's like, how is God going to use this? How is God going to use this adversity that is now in my life, family stuff, work stuff, whatever it is, to help somebody else who's going through something similar. So I think that's powerful. I'm going to follow up with one more question. So through that process of your ex-wife being addicted to narcotics, where was your faith during that 12 years? Were you leaning into your faith? Were you kind of moving away from it because now you see this person you love going through this difficult season of life themselves? Like, where was your faith during that season of life?
So And I'm pausing here just because I'm trying to think back a little bit before I answer. I don't think I can honestly say I've ever really had a point in time where my faith was broken or I was angry at God, or those type of mindsets or whatever you want to call it. I don't feel like I ever had that. I mean, yeah, there was times where maybe it wasn't at the forefront, and I'm not trying to make it sound like, man, I'm jacked up high on faith and all that. But I've always felt like it's there, and I know it's there, and I completely believe in no matter what I'm doing, what I'm going through, if it sucks or if it doesn't, I know because I've seen it now. I've seen it too many times. I know that where I am right now is for a reason. But I will definitely say that even though in that 12-year time frame, maybe I didn't have to lean on it, constantly or consistently, because I mean, during that time, I kicked her out. She came back in. We had 2 biological kids in that time period. I kicked her out a couple more times. There's so many moving parts of that whole situation, and there were good times in it, just not very many. But in that time, and especially towards the end, where so just kind of maybe tying a few of these loose ends together. At first, there were times where I was a single parent of my son, and then years later, at times I was a single parent of my son and my daughter. And then towards the end, I spent several years as a single parent of 4 kids, and one of them was completely handicapped, and the other one was pretty much a 1-year-old. So I was doing that as a firefighter working 24 hours. Obviously, I could not do that by myself. I had help, and I don't want to make it sound like that, but that was the time towards the end where I already been through 10 plus years of this stuff, and now almost to the mindset of this has got to stop. But then also having everything that it's involved with 4 kids by yourself. That's all I had. I didn't have anything else but faith at that time. And so that was truly kind of the time where I was done internally. I had nothing left to give. One of the things that we do with our developing a high performance classes is talk about a bad day. And that's literally the story I shared in this last class at Atlanta was that time period. I would bring the kids to daycare early enough in the morning so I could go to straight to the fire station, and I would drop them off. I'd get back to my car, and I would play some type of Christian music or some type of music that would just draw the emotions out of me. And I would just sit there and cry because I did not want to bring that emotional wreck to work. And honestly, I was. I mean, that's not going to fix everything. So I was still a mess getting to work, but it's almost like I had to do that because at least I had control. Because there were times where I'm sure everybody feels that way. It's like, oh my gosh, man, if I make one false move with my face, I'm going to lose it. It's just like everything I could do to hold it together. But that's the times I was in, and thankfully, that faith and the responsibility I felt to my kids, it didn't lead down any darker roads. Like a lot of people that we're close friends with, they have their own versions of their stories, but it leads down to really dark roads. And I can honestly say that never happened to me, thankfully. But I will also honestly say it's probably because I knew who's going to watch these kids if I'm not there. That's what held me in there. And so, again, to answer your question, that was truly like, man, faith kept me going. Faith kept me going, And now later in, we're years past that now, and I've got a new wife and a new family now, and everything it's so nice to be able to just breathe. And even when we're going through stuff, when you have 8 kids, you're going to have somebody causing trouble every day. It's just the way it is. But it's just normal stuff. We're not dealing with all this ridiculousness that I had to deal with. And it's just so nice. But I still, I'm not a big church guy. We can get into that more here in a little bit, but that has nothing to do with my relationship with God. I truly have a connection and a relationship with Him, and I seek that out myself. And one of the biggest things I'm into right now is just purpose, our purpose of why we're here. And I can't be digging into these things and really, coming up with a message for that if He wasn't involved, because it is His message. And so there's another long answer for that.
So a lot of people, this is great. I'm kind of going to go around the long way for this question, right? A lot of people look at King Solomon as like King Solomon's gold mine, right? His gold, where he stole, one of the wisest kings ever on the planet. And what a lot of people don't know is that he wrote the majority of Proverbs in the Bible. And Proverbs 27, as iron sharpens iron, as one man sharpens another. So as you're going through these trials and these tribulations in your life, who are the men that you leaned on? Because I find it fascinating that your faith never waned. Mine did in a second. When that happened to my daughter, my prayers changed to, I can't wait to meet you so I can punch you in the throat, And it was not, I immediately go to this overreactive and that's my history, right? That's that was the thorn in my side. Paul has his thorn. I have mine, and John talked about, how in my weakness, his faith is made perfect, and so I had to learn that hard way. I am just blown away that your faith never waned. So who were the people you sought out, or who did you see come into your life that helped you and supported you through these things? How did you feed your soul, bro, through a period like that?
Man, that's just trying to kind of think through different periods. I mean, I had my good friend that I opened up to at first, obviously there for a while. And then as I mentioned, I started being more open about everything going on. And so pretty much it didn't take long before everybody at least knew a little bit about what was going on. And I think there were some time periods there where it wasn't a person. It was a group of people that were taking care of me. There was a group of people taking care of me to the point where I'm pretty sure I didn't even know some of the things they were doing to take care of me. I mean, when I moved into the last house that we lived in before moving to Tulsa, we had to redo the entire inside of the house, all new paint on every wall. Well, there was just a line of guys in and out of the house for a couple of days doing that. And I never even asked anybody for this. This was something that was orchestrated.
That's one of the most humbling things you can experience, isn't it?
Yeah,
man.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so there were lots of times during that period that it was just people in general. I think that there was a big part of that period too, that I was just entranced in learning and reading. I was maybe with a crew or so that I didn't have a good connection with. And so it almost turned into me just pouring myself into reading books. So here's something that I will admit. I never have ever read a book cover to cover until I think I was like 30 plus years old. And during this time period. And I started reading a bunch. And I feel like, there was still support around me, but that was really what was kind of keeping me going. The books that were getting me geared towards, strengthening my character and bringing me closer to a better relationship with God and strengthening that faith that, like I said, I can't say that it was ever in the negative, the red zone, but it's definitely been drained some. So that time period, it helped me a lot just by doing that. And, later on, I've got involved with a couple different crews with a couple different people that I wasn't really had a relationship before that have really made a huge impact in my life, not only just making it through that time period of my personal life, but really transforming me as a career firefighter and turning my career around. And so it's always people. And it's just like the happening at Florida that we talked about and this and everything else that I have had the opportunity to do. And there's nothing special about me beyond 1,000 or 1,000,000 other people out there. But I'm able to grab opportunities. And, if it doesn't work out for family and stuff, okay, I can't say yes every time, but thankfully I've been open to a lot of stuff, a lot of opportunities that I am not comfortable with. To be honest, even doing this right here, if somebody told me I would be doing that probably 5 years ago, I'd be like, no way. I hate it. I hate talking in front of people. I hate all of it. But it is the path that was chosen for me. And thankfully, I don't have the ego to buck that and to think that I have a better path. And so I've just kind of thankfully followed, hopefully as good as I could. The path was laid out. But yeah, it's just, I'm sure you guys could say the same thing. It's not just one person. It's like when you need somebody, something happens. It's just like with the kids. When I would come into a situation where like, oh my gosh, I've got to find somebody to watch 4 kids for 24 hours straight. It's like, how's that even going to work? Who would ever do that? It happens, and it all laid out, and it's awesome. It's awesome to see it.
So when you talked about the books, that's something that we talk about a lot, is how important our inputs create our outputs. And you were seeking knowledge, you were seeking wisdom in those books. I've experienced something very similar, that when I found myself in difficult seasons, it was the Bible, it was books that lined up with the difficulty I was going through. And in those books, there were answers, but more importantly, there was perspective that I might not have had if I didn't read that book. And I could attach to that thought in those moments of difficulty and be like, well, so-and-so went through this and they endured it. So can I. There's something to be said about we all bleed red and put our pants on the same way, one leg after the other. And when we see other people go through difficulty and adversity and come out the other side, it gives us hope. And in those books is hope. And I love how you did that, as opposed to turn into alcohol and turn into drugs. You turn to books. Your inputs weren't negative, they were positive, and it played a huge role in where you're at today. I want to ask you about purpose. You went back to purpose and you talked about how that's where you're at right now in your journey. And just, talk about purpose, what purpose means to you today, and how you're moving forward with that, what you feel like your mission is with that purpose.
Man, that's one of those things where it's like, if you ever, trying to think how to word this for people that might not have experienced it. I know you two guys have, but it is a truly amazing feeling when you know God is putting something on your heart, and there is no confusion on what that is. It might take you a little bit to figure it out, but once you realize, like, oh, okay, I know what this is, there's no confusing, and that is what a lot of this stuff is for me. And it's still fairly early. And so I don't really even know where it's all going to go, but it really, and I've talked to Rick about this a while back. It honestly just started with a statement or a sentence or whatever that came to my mind. And it's all ballooned out of that, but we were perfectly made for an extraordinary purpose. And that is, I don't even know where it came from. It's just something that was laid on me. But when I think about that, it's like that there is not a more true statement anywhere than that. We were perfectly made. It doesn't matter that you spent 10 years in jail, or you made really bad choices here, or you did this or that. You were still made exactly like you were supposed to do for a purpose. I can't say what that purpose is for anybody. It's hard enough for me to figure out what my own is, but it's just a really impactful statement to me, because I think about everything that I have been through, and everything that I have been through, how it's just changed me in maybe even the slightest ways. But where I am at today is exactly where I need to be. And hopefully it's not near where I am going to be, but it is where I need to be because of all that stuff. And, I've been asked before, and I think everybody has, if you would go back and change one thing, what would you change? I'm like, I wouldn't. I wouldn't change anything. I mean, there's nothing that I would gamble in my life right now on changing something in the past, because you never know what is here today that wouldn't be. And so, yeah, I've done some embarrassing stuff. I have been an idiot a lot of times. I have done this and that and this and that, but I'm here, and this is where God wants me. And so that's kind of where it's leading me to. But to me, and I've got a class that's kind of built out of it in the works, and kind of trying to visualize what that message looks like. But obviously everybody has a purpose, and I feel like it's truly one of the biggest, most important gifts that we can give anybody is our story and pursuing our purpose. And to me, it almost starts with identity, your identity, because I don't know what to fight for. I don't know what to stand for. I don't know how to feel this or that if I don't know who I am. I'm going to be wishy-washy, and I'm not going to be able to truly speak from a voice of authenticity and love if I don't even know who I am. So finding out who we are individually is got to be where it starts. And, right after that is using the abilities and gifts that we've been given. Everybody has been given gifts. It doesn't matter what you look like or what you lived in or grew up in. You have a very unique set of gifts and abilities that are there for it's up to you. Nobody else can use them. You can either waste them or you can use them. And so, that, and then tying it all together is just that pursuit of purpose. And I don't know if you guys have heard it. One of the most kind of impactful quotes I've ever heard, and I tie it right into this, is from Arthur Ashe. And he says, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And to me, there's not a person on earth that doesn't apply to that. It doesn't require any special equipment, any status in life, any regional location, nothing. You start where you're at, no matter where that is. If it's on the bottom, you start at the bottom. You use what you have, and that might be just your will to freaking live. Whatever it is, you use it, and then do what you can. It's just about doing the work. Rick said it at first, and this is something else that I kind of, that's the formula. The formula is very simple, but the process is very difficult. And that's where a lot of people fall off. And that's where a lot of, life's purpose for individuals never gets seen, because they aren't willing to do the process, put the work into the process. And so that's kind of where it's going. I think that if I can at least talk a few people into sharing their story that have never shared it before, that right there is huge. But, as many people as I can to really impress upon that, that's kind of the goal, is just to use what you have to make the world better.
So a lot of people in the fire. Well, first of all, you and John have something in common. It happened to me too, but it was kind of secondary. You guys went into the books and somehow knew you were searching for this answer that lied within you. I'm looking for an answer outside of me, because this is the way I've always lived my life. Everything, my outside was who I was. I had it backwards. I didn't realize that it was the building of the inside reflects the exterior. And so here I am trying to fix things on the inside by doing stuff on the outside. You guys understood that in books later on. After my introduction to Grossman, I was reintroduced to the Bible, and I could not put it down. I would spend hours a day reading for weeks. It was like a spiritual adventure. It was like binging on a Netflix series, right? During COVID, right? Because you ain't got nowhere else to go, right? And so, you guys, you had, I didn't. So I look at this podcast, and like your podcast, Jeremy, as well, as it's a book, and men get to hear this message and realize you're not doing it wrong. Those things are the things that's your refinement process. So on our shirts in the cadre, it's God doesn't call it qualified. He qualifies the called. And that is part of your calling. Your calling is you're going through this refinement, but in our heads, we're like, oh, screwed up again. When is this going to end? Blah, 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 blah. And it's that process, but it's the people that are put in your life. So if men like yourselves don't open their mouths and share that with other people at the risk of being ridiculed, one of our brothers is going through that right now. He was on this podcast, and he's being reprimanded through work as a result of being on a podcast, sharing, bearing his soul, which to me now, actually it pisses me off, but I understand the ignorance around it, because it's the exterior is more important, right? It's what did they say? Yep. What do they say is, I'll come back to that, because it's essentially it's look like a professional and people will believe it. Well, if you believe you're a professional and internally you realize why it is that you're doing what you're doing, right? Because it's servant leadership, and it means sacrifice, right? John talks about the gift of sacrifice. We talk about the gift of suffering. All of these things are important because it adds to the quality of man that you are. Have you had people come to you? Because I know they've come to John and they come to me. Have you had people come to you as a result of what you've been through, and because of your transparency and willingness to take a risk and being vulnerable? Do they come to you one-on-one or call or whatever and like, hey man, I'm jammed up. This is what's going on? Does that happen in your life, bro?
Yeah. And man, that's, we talked about the crew coming and helping paint the house and how humbling of an experience that is, which it was. It has nothing even close to compare to when somebody reaches out to you like that and tells you, hey, thank you for saying this, or thank you for talking about this, or thank you for being honest about this or that, because, I'm so and so going through this. Man, I'm in no way a big fish in this whole thing, but it is truly amazing how it happens. And I can't remember who I was talking to, but we were talking the other day about, it's the whole, well, the people that need to hear this aren't here to hear it. Well, I don't believe that anymore, and I don't say that anymore, because I believe that God's gonna have the people hearing it that need to hear it, and maybe that'll be 2 years down the road. I don't know, but if people are seeking out what they need to hear, they're going to find it, and maybe it's just some goofball, being vulnerable on a podcast about messing up a hose lay or whatever. But that is probably, I will say, my favorite thing about all of this. Being a host of a podcast, being somebody that does social media, whatever you want to call it. That's my favorite thing, and it's not because, hey, people are giving me props or whatever, but it's truly people that needed to hear something, and thankfully God put it on me to say it. And those have been really, really cool times. And so, yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest thing that I would say now, after answering that, is I know I feel it a lot. And when I hear things, it's like, man, that was really impactful, or I needed to hear that. Well, I'm telling you right now, as somebody that has been on the other side of it, man, reach out to those people and let them know how it made you feel, because that's what kind of keeps me going on. Because there have been times where it's like, I just don't, I struggle. I've been really honest about my struggle with imposter syndrome, and man, I go back and forth with myself all the time with it. But it's little things like that, people reaching out, that keep me going, because I don't try to pretend like I'm anything other than what I am. Mostly what I put out is stuff that's on my heart. It's not things that I'm knowledgeable about or tactics or anything. It's just soft stuff. And so to be able to do that consistently, it does help a lot when you feel like there is some good coming out of it. And so, yeah, that's been a really, really big moment. And when that happens, it's really big.
I love we talk about, am I afraid that if I'm authentic, if I'm vulnerable, people are going to laugh at me, or they're not going to think as much of me as they do now? And then the reality of it is, we talked about this when we first got on, before we started recording, was we're all broken. Like, every single one of us is broken. Every single one of us right now listening to this podcast, all three of us on this podcast, is going through something in our lives that we would rather not have to go through. But since we're going through it, the three of us know there's purpose in it, and we just got to figure out what that is. And if you're listening to this, I want you to listen at a deeper level than just listening to what we're saying, the words. Like, what you're hearing here is three broken men. We're still broken. We're still on that journey. We're still on that path of trying to become the best version of ourselves, so that we could honor God, so that we could draw other people closer to him. And we don't have this all figured out. The other thing I like that you said was you struggle with imposter syndrome. Anybody who's trying to become the best version of themselves is going to struggle with that. That is part of the deal, man. If you are on that path of trying to figure out, how do I get better? How do I become a better husband, a better father, a better friend? You're always going to be reassessing yourself at the end of the day and seeing where you came up short.
Yeah, the
bringing on
fire
that
service calls
imposter
it the
feeling.
t-shirt, the
But
t-shirt
let me tell you,
fireman, they like the cool saying.
right. Yeah, we're all going to feel that at some level, but just keep doing what you know to be right, and knowing that you're doing it for the right reasons. You're not always going to get it right. That's just not going to happen. I screw up every single day. I know Jeremy does, Rick does, we all do. So just keep doing what you know to be right and be consistent over time, and you're going to get there. We're all going to get there. And when I say get there, there's no finish line to this.
Oh yeah.
Right? There's just more work to do. There's no finish line.
When you realize,
there's just more work
hold
to
on,
do.
because that's really important.
I want to talk a
And
little bit.
You guys chime in, because a lot of guys think there's like a finish line or something, and there's not. This is what it looks like. This is it. This is it, bro. It's like, oh God, again, yes, again. And eventually you learn how to manage and handle it, but it is.
And I will
work,
say,
bro. It's like saying you're going to put this fire out. There's never going to be another one. No, there's not. And you're going to screw something up there too. Maybe not. Maybe you fire off 99 of them and the 100th one, whatever. It's always work, bro.
And before you move on, I will say that, we touched on purpose. I think all of this, what we're talking about right now, is a part of my purpose, because I feel like you just don't see a lot of this on social media or hear a lot of this on social media or podcasts. Just the genuine struggle of life. And not that I want to, everything I put out have a negative connotation. I want to hopefully end on a good note, but that's part of why I do what I'm doing, is because I want to show everybody that, man, I messed this up. You're not going to see very many videos, people posting, people messing things up, but I have. And a lot of my episodes are about things that I've struggled through or whatever. I want that to be out there, because, I just don't think there's enough of it. And what you're doing right now is, it's just, we need more of this stuff. We need more real conversation. I'm all about learning from these people that are just so knowledgeable about fire service stuff, and they know,
they got there the same way, Jeremy.
The whatever
they got there the same way by screwing up,
and that's great.
Man.
And that's the story. That's the story I want to hear. I want to hear that. I can learn all that stuff as well, but when we have conversations, and when I'm listening to somebody interview or whatever, that's what I want to hear. I'll read about everything they know about when the time is right. But this is what I want to hear, and so that's really been a focus of me. And I've done it all. I've had people that are just, we talk about other things, but I've really noticed that I just don't enjoy that as much. It has nothing to do with who I am talking with. It's the conversation. I enjoy hearing people's stories. I enjoy giving them a platform to share their journey and their strength and their victories and all of that. That's what I truly enjoy now. And so I just wanted to kind of add that in on the back of that is, man, you don't see a lot of it, but yeah, it's okay to not only share your mistakes and your struggles, but to really just be open with it. Who cares? I mean, it doesn't matter. It just shows that you're trying to improve.
You talked about how you don't see a lot of what we're doing today on social media, because social media, it has turned into the highlight reel. People are only going to share their wins. You're not going to have somebody get on there and be like, my kids aren't listening. My oldest ran away. I haven't talked to my folks in 5 years, and hope everybody has a great day. Like nobody's going to say that stuff. It's the highlight reel, and people begin to believe that's how it has to be. So it kind of shuts them down from wanting to open up themselves, because that's all they see is everybody else has got it together but me. Yep. And that's just not the case. So this is an important conversation we're having. I want to shift into the class that you guys teach together.
I'm sorry.
And
let me
more
just
importantly, I
correct you.
want to
That's
talk about how that's impacted you as an instructor. Like
do together.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that, brother. I can't tell you how important that is to me, and to get back to being around the good men and women of that class. So I'm looking forward to that. But as an instructor, and you've done several of the classes, what has that, how has that added value to your life, and how has that refined you as a man? Talk to us about that.
Just I think the biggest thing that I pull out of it is just the process, seeing it work. And everything is intentional. I mean, it might not run like a freaking top every time, but everything is intentional time wise, and just the way everything is laid out. But seeing the groundwork laid at first, and seeing each technique and each kind of way to improve on yourself be given to the students, and then seeing them start to put it in play and put it in play and put it in play. And then we're deep into the PM hours and early AM hours, and they're still just soaking this stuff up, and they're still just pushing themselves beyond, I'm sure, what any of them thought they would be able to do. But it's because of all this work that is being put into really giving them those tools to make it happen. And there's that piece, and that is huge. Just kind of learning how important developing relationships are with the people that you're instructing, I think is huge. Even if it's just a couple hours, just being able to give them a person up there to listen to, instead of just a box stand up that could be played on a cassette tape. Just truly having some engagement back and forth, I think, has been really cool to see. But honestly, just what I gain from being around all of these guys, just the strength that I gain from not only the students, seeing them push and continue to make it through the entire program, but to be around these guys that, man, they love it. They freaking absolutely love it. I mean, we've got a few that get seriously emotional when it's time to go home, and I don't blame them. I mean, I feel the same way. We haven't done anything since May together, and I'm like, I want to do something. So it's definitely just that community, and that the strength that I gain through them has been really, really something that's impacted me a lot.
Well, when you think about, I like how you say it gives you strength. When you see the human spirit inside people, and you see that, I know you guys bring them to the edge, you bring them to the breaking point, to the point of complete exhaustion, and to see them work through that with your coaching and your mentoring, because you're very good at picking up on human behavior. That's what makes you guys such great instructors, is you're able to read the students like a book, and you're able to plug in the appropriate instruction, the appropriate technique in the moment, and then to see the human spirit rise to the occasion, not because they want to, but because they're doing the work to do that, is going to gain, you're going to gain strength. That's what we love, to be inspired. Human beings love that. We love that. So I'm excited to get back to learning from you guys and working with you guys. I'm looking forward to that opportunity at the firemanship conference.
One more thing I'd like to say about it, I just kind of thought about that is really, really another impactful thing, is I believe a lot of people go into this thinking that the physical part is going to be the hardest part. And it's hard. Absolutely, it's hard. But I promise you that mental part is way, way harder, because it's a lot easier for us just to muscle through something that is physically hard. But to truly push our way through it mentally, it's a whole different animal. And so just to see that happen, I think that is probably one of the biggest things, is to really see people almost like a light bulb, like, oh crap, it's going to be physically hard, but there's a lot going on here that I'm going to have to, I mean, there's people there's things coming out of people that they are not prepared to deal with, that they never intended on coming out, things that haven't been dealt with. But that's just part of the class. That's the things that are holding these people back. And now that they get tools to deal with these things, it's all coming out. But that's a great thing, because now they're able to deal with them, especially in that environment that you've got so many people there willing to help work through it right there. That's really, really good.
And it's what we were working towards, John, before you went through several seasons of what you went through in your old department to get to where you're at today, right? And to reestablish with the podcast and all of the things. It's we hit this shift in our lives at some point because other men have shown us how to do it. And when we hit that roadblock, it's like, okay, where are we going? What do you want me to do now? And when I say, what do you want me to do? I mean, Jesus, I'm like, well, what do you want me to do now? Where am I going? I mean, have I not given it enough, really? Like more? And it always turns into something that's greater than just the sum of whatever that you've been through. It's hard for me to capture it into words, because as you go through these difficult times and you come out the other side, now you get to see other men that are going through the same thing, and you recognize it and you know where they're at. So you know what you can say and how to inspire them, the way that you put it, John. And that inspiration is that we show them some techniques to come out the other side. And they love it. The missing piece is what we're discussing today, which is our faith. It's your spiritual aspect. How do you feed your soul? Because we do. It's all about, the physical, the mental, and the emotional, right? And how we can change that. We do open with prayer and close with that, but it's not the greatest platform for the spiritual side to come out, right? That is another battle that is very personal. And so guys talk about it. And I tell them, I go, you're struggling. Well, I don't believe, my brother, I don't believe in Jesus Christ. I have my own idea of what God is. My God is very loving, very kind. He wants everybody to be successful, and he describes all these things very similar to that. And I laugh, and he says, you think that's funny? And I said, no, I think it's ironic. You just described Jesus Christ, and you don't, because the human element ruins that, right? Because we're all human beings. We just talked about how we're fallible as firemen. Same with religion. We talked about that before, John. You put something out there that was very, very powerful, and I would like for you to repeat that. What was that you were talking about?
Yeah, so I'll read it right now. I didn't come up with this, but it's powerful, and it's, if you're listening to this podcast and you've had a roadblock in your faith, you've never had faith, you've been to church and the church just didn't meet your expectations. It goes like this. It says, many people reject Jesus because of bad experiences with religious people. But here's the thing. Jesus had bad experiences with religious people too. In fact, they killed him. They murdered him. People will let you down. Jesus won't. And I think that's where that roadblock comes in, is we're trying to find Jesus through people, and people are imperfect. The three of us are imperfect. And that's the challenge, is you're looking to people to see Jesus and find Jesus and have a relationship with Jesus. They're the same people looking to Jesus. And so I guess what I'm trying to say here is, look to Jesus, not to people. Get into the Bible, read scripture, seek that relationship with him. And over time, he will reveal things to you. He will open your eyes, and you will be amazed at how your life has laid out to put you exactly where you are today.
Amen,
for a specific purpose, just like Jeremy talked about earlier. So
Jeremy went dark
thank
on
you
my
for
screen.
letting me
I don't know if you
repeat
see
that,
him
Rick.
on yours. Okay. So So Jeremy,
Yeah, he's here. We're good. We're
if
good.
you had words of advice for people that are struggling, that are going through things, right? Because we've been talking about our struggles and giving examples of how we came through them. What could you tell somebody that's struggling that maybe doesn't believe, right? But they're firemen. They're listening to this and they want to learn some cool firefighting shit, you know? Well, the real warriors throughout history of this rock, this planet that we live on, have lived a life like this, like what we're discussing. This was a very, very integral part of becoming a warrior. The way that they treated their families, the way they treated each other. And it was even true through the Roman Empire, even though it may not have been so through the kings, but through the generals, the people that were in the trenches. There was that bond. These men discussed that. They surrounded themselves with men like this. If you could give that advice to others that are seeking that or have had bad outcomes because of bad actors, right? What could you tell them? What some words of wisdom, some things that, you've been through?
Man, it's for me, it's all who you surround yourself with. And, if I'm just to make sure I'm clear, you're kind of talking about the people that have maybe
that's like, yeah,
gone away from the church because of
I don't have an imaginary friend.
certain people.
That's the way they quote as Jesus, right? And yeah, I don't pray to ghosts. I don't believe. Okay, good. My response is good because I didn't either. Yeah. But that path to coming to believe is what allows me to speak with integrity and conviction on this topic. So, that kind of thing, the vulnerability thing, the being authentic, authenticity is not easy, bro. It's not easy because you got to get to know who you are. So what's that process look like?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's a little bit of a struggle for me to kind of put myself in that place. I mean, I grew up in the church as far as family and always at church, no matter what, Wednesdays and Sundays. And that literally was from birth to pretty much when I left home. But the thing is, I didn't leave with much. I didn't leave with that much knowledge. I didn't leave with, I can't remember where I admitted this, but admitted a few weeks ago that I didn't even know that the first 4 books of the New Testament were basically telling the same story. I thought they were all different until, this time period where I was doing all that reading. I don't understand that. I went to a church that we didn't do the Sunday school thing. And so I'm sure there's a lot of that to do with it. But what I'm saying is I didn't leave with everything I have today. I was in church my whole life, but I was not just a solid Christian that point. And so that's something that I just have kind of worked through, and it truly is a part of that journey. Something you say, Rick, is, and I think you even said it on this podcast when you were on it, but the journey is the story. And our journeys, whether you believe in God or you don't, or you believe in this or that, your journey is going to bring you to God. And you have the option of ignoring that and overlooking it and fighting through it and all that. And that's fine. A lot of people do. But you're going to come in contact with God. I'm not talking physically, but with his work. Absolutely. And so for me, it's, like you say, Rick, if it's not my choice if somebody believes or not, but really the only thing I will say is, okay, you don't believe, well, at least surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with solid people that, like you talked about, are authentic, that are vulnerable, that are good, solid human beings. And whatever comes out of that is going to be good.
So to condense that,
there's no bad thing that's going to come out of that. You got to
You
surround
don't
yourself
know
with
it
those
all.
good people.
You don't know it all. None of us do. So stay open-minded and maybe be willing
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
admit that, you know what?
Yeah. 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 Keep your eyes open for sure, because God is all around us, and there are opportunities around us all the time. And that's something else that I had to really realize, because for us, for humans, okay, it's easy to think about opportunities as a one-way thing. Okay, what can I gain as an opportunity, or what opportunities are out there? Well, those opportunities go both ways. We also need to be thinking about what opportunities we can give others. And another trap we fall into is always looking for the big win, the aha moment, or the big bow around something really awesome. Well, sometimes it's just about helping somebody push a cart up a hill, an older person, to help them there. That's huge. That is something that is very, very big gift that we can give somebody. And it's nothing really. It's really nothing.
And there's a
I love
synergy
that
to
because
it.
Keeping your eyes
There's a
open.
synergy
I
to it.
love that because
If you keep
I've
doing
never
that,
felt
eventually
bad
that
doing something
becomes
nice
the
for
way,
somebody.
as Mark
Yeah.
likes to say. What's in the way
Absolutely.
becomes the way,
Yeah, it's like,
And so that becomes the way. You start doing that. Go ahead, brother.
yeah.
And so just to be completely honest, that example it comes out, and why I speak so passionately about the pushing uphill thing is because I was on the other end of that. I chose to sit and walk past a lady pushing somebody in a wheelchair up a reclined walkway in a hospital, and didn't offer to help, didn't do anything. And 10 feet after I passed her, I started feeling awful, and rightfully so. It was ridiculous for me not to at least offer help there. And so that was a moment that I'm not proud of, but at the same time, it did open my eyes as unto these little things that all of us, we're buried in,
How long ago
either
was
our
that?
phone or just the ground or whatever. We're heads down, barreling to our next destination, and we're missing
So this year.
things over and over again. How long
So
ago?
just to point out to
This first of the
everybody
year,
that
probably
here's a guy that's, well along in his life,
January. Yep.
seems to manage things relatively well, has had a lot of adversity in his life, makes a mistake, recognize it, keeps going, and the power of missing that opportunity has stayed with you to the point that it's made you more aware of when these opportunities present themselves. When the doors open, walk through them. So don't think that because you missed a chance one time, it's not coming
Yep.
back again. It is. And if that means instead of hazing the rookie, teaching the rookie, then that's what it
Yep.
is. Instead of making fun of somebody, for not knowing which way to hold the damn Halligan when they're forcing a door, right? Or you're giving the rookie, the kid that's been hey, let's show you how stupid these new techie kids are. And you give him the K-12 and tell him to go push start it in the parking lot, and he's out there for 20 minutes trying to push start this thing. Yeah, that shit's fun. But then you need to go out there and you need to let them know that, yeah, being part of the butt end of jokes it comes with the territory. But I'm going to show you something, okay? And I'm going to show you, and you show it out of a desire for this person to be better. That's called love,
Yep. And I think this also goes back to your question about, what do you say to people that are struggling, or don't believe or whatever. I feel like we can't affect people's choices. We can't make them believe. But I promise you, if you're a Christian and you're doing all these little things every chance you get, sooner or later it's going to make an impact on somebody's life. And even the littlest things, you never know what that seed is going to turn into. It's not our job to make whatever plant
the action,
that
the
God
outcome.
has in their life out of the seed, but it's our job to plant them. We have to plant them. That is our responsibility. And that's what he gives us. He gives us opportunities to plant these seeds, and maybe as little as it is, just helping somebody open a door, you never know what that might turn into. And so that's why I kind of tie that back.
Well, brother, I appreciate you taking time today. We're going on an hour, so I want to respect everybody on the podcast time, the listeners' time. I know my attention span sometimes, if I get past 60 minutes, we start to drift off. But I think this we'll get you back on, man. I think there's more to talk about. We'll get you back on, and we'll do another episode with the three of us. If people want to reach out to you, if they want to, you have your own podcast. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that.
Hold on,
what's
Jeremy,
the best way for them
never miss
to
an
connect with
opportunity
you
to try to put somebody on the
if
spot?
they wanted to reach out to you?
John?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, I got it. I got it this time. You ready? First, culture.
Nope. See, I thought I had it going so good. I thought everything was, easy to remember, but apparently it's not. So it is Crew First Culture is basically everything I have. It's email is crewfirstculture@yahoo.com, and that's with a 1ST. That is the one hiccup that I have to spell out for everybody. But Crew First Culture podcast is the podcast I have, and like I've kind of touched on here and there, man, it's just about real conversation and just hopefully adding value to people's lives and this and that. But website is crewfirstculture.com, and pretty much everything. What these guys are really.
Well,
Rick is loving the way that
Rick
he
knew
Rick
I was going to remember.
Hard, I can't. I
now it's undeniable.
It's imprinted.
Yeah.
We always want to say first. For some reason, you want to put the first because it's just the numbers.
Number
there.
one,
yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, brothers, thank you so much for blessing us with your time today. I'm looking forward to sharing this with our community, and I hope you all have a blessed day.
You too. Thank you, guys.